Being a 25-year-old software engineer isn't just about coding and debugging, it's about proving yourself in ways I never imagined I'd have to. Every day I walk into tech companies where innovation breathes through the walls, where dreams become digital reality, and where I finally found my true calling. But success has a funny way of highlighting the cracks in your foundation, especially when it comes to family. Thanksgiving used to mean something magical to me. I can still remember the childhood sense of pumpkin pie and the warmth of family gatherings, back before I understood the subtle hierarchies that would shape my adult life. Now, every November brings a complex mix of emotions that I carry like lines of code, some functional, others waiting to break. My aunt's annual Thanksgiving dinner has become this grand production at her mansion, a showcase of what she considers success. I've watched it evolve over the years, growing more elaborate as her wealth increased, while the distance between me and my cousins seemed to grow with every passing celebration. You see, in my family, there's always been this unspoken divide, those who were born into the right circumstances and those who weren't. I fell into the latter category. What makes it harder is that I've achieved something remarkable in my field, something that should bridge these gaps. But sometimes success doesn't translate across family lines. It's like speaking a programming language to someone who only wants to hear their native tongue. The meaning gets lost in translation. I never wanted to be the family's outsider, but here I am navigating these waters with a heart full of determination and a spirit that refuses to break.
My story isn't just about holiday dinners or family dynamics. It's about standing firm in your truth when the world, or in this case, your own blood, tries to write your story for you. Looking back now, I realize that every slight, every dismissive comment, every subtle exclusion was preparing me for something bigger, something that would test not just my resilience, but my very understanding of what family truly means. And this Thanksgiving, well, it would become the turning point that none of us saw coming. Every Thanksgiving, my aunt's mansion looms before me like a pristine fortress of judgment. I remember the first time I walked through those towering double doors, my shoes clicking against imported Italian marble, feeling like an intruder in a museum where I didn't belong. The chandelier in the foyer alone probably costs more than my first year's rent, its crystal teardrops catching the light and somehow making even the air feel expensive. Year after year, I've watched this grand production unfold. The dining room table stretches endlessly, dressed in fine linens and adorned with sterling silver place settings that have been in the family for generations, or so I'm constantly reminded. The centerpieces are always fresh cut flowers arranged by a professional decorator, perfectly coordinated with the seasonal china that only sees daylight on these occasions. My cousins float through these spaces like they were born to them, their designer outfits and perfectly styled hair matching the carefully curated atmosphere. Meanwhile, I stand in the shadows of their confidence, watching as they exchange inside jokes and share stories of their latest European vacations or country club achievements. Even in my best dress and with my recent promotions, I feel like I'm wearing a costume, playing a part in someone else's story. The thing about being an outsider in your own family is that it creeps into your bones slowly. It's in the way conversations suddenly shift when you approach. How your aunt's smile never quite reaches her eyes when she greets you, or how your accomplishments are dismissed with polite nods, while my cousin's smallest achievements are celebrated like Olympic victories. I've spent years trying to decode the unspoken rules of this world I was born into but never quite inherited. The perfectly polished surfaces of my aunt's mansion reflect back a version of myself. I barely recognize someone who's always a step behind, always slightly out of place. But what they don't see, what they've never bothered to look for, is the strength that comes from standing alone. Sometimes being an outsider gives you the clearest view of who you really are and what truly matters in life. This year, though, something feels different. Maybe it's because I finally started to understand that their approval was never mine to earn in the first place. Their mansion might be grand, but it's built on foundations of appearances and expectations that I've outgrown, one painful Thanksgiving at a time. I still remember the exact moment my heart sank at this year's Thanksgiving dinner. As everyone gathered in my aunt's opulent dining room, she pulled me aside with what I thought was going to be a warm embrace. Instead, she gestured toward the kitchen and said those words I'll never forget. Sweetie, we're a bit short-handed today. You wouldn't mind helping out from the kitchen, would you? The kitchen became my prison that day. While crystal glasses clinked and laughter echoed from the dining room, I found myself surrounded by stainless steel appliances and the overwhelming scent of sage and roasted turkey. The heat from the ovens made my cheeks flush, but it wasn't just from the temperature. Every time I had to walk through those swinging doors with another platter, I felt the weight of my aunt's judgment pressing down on my shoulders. I could hear my cousins sharing stories about their recent vacations and business ventures, while I carefully arranged cranberry sauce and adjusted place settings. The worst part wasn't even the physical labor, it was the subtle message being sent. Despite my success, my education, my hard work, I was still somehow less than them in my aunt's eyes. Each time I emerged from the kitchen, I caught glimpses of my cousins lounging in their fine clothes, while my black dress became spotted with gravy stains. The isolation hit hardest when I heard them toast to family traditions. I stood alone in that massive kitchen, holding back tears while polishing silverware that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But something inside me shifted that day. With every dish I served, with every laugh that filtered in from the dining room, my resolve grew stronger. This wasn't just about a Thanksgiving dinner anymore. This was about years of being treated as an outsider in my own family. Standing there, surrounded by the remnants of a feast I'd helped serve, but wasn't invited to enjoy, I made a silent promise to myself. This would be the last time anyone would mistake my kindness for weakness, my success for servitude. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from enduring these moments of humiliation with grace, knowing that your true worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you rise above it. As I stood there, surrounded by the warmth of freshly served dishes and the lingering aroma of pumpkin pie, my world suddenly froze. My aunt's perfectly manicured hand extended toward me, holding that pristine white envelope with the catering company's logo emblazoned on top. Her words cut through the dining room air like a knife through butter. You can handle this, right? Consider your contribution since you don't have a real family of your own. My heart didn't just sink, it shattered into a thousand pieces. The laughter that erupted around the table felt like daggers, each chuckle from my cousins driving deeper into my soul. I remember gripping the envelope so tightly. My knuckles turned white, forcing a smile that felt like it would crack my face. $4,850. The number burned into my retinas as I stared at the bill, trying to maintain my composure. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, having just accepted a position that would have me earning more in a month than some of my laughing cousins made in a year, being treated like the family charity case. The weight of their expectations, their assumptions, and their casual cruelty pressed down on my shoulders like a physical burden. But something inside me had changed. This wasn't just about a bill anymore. It was about years of subtle degradation, of being treated as less than of having my worth measured by their warped standards. I reached for my phone, opened my banking app, and paid the bill right there. Each digit I typed felt like a silent rebellion. What they saw as submission was actually my liberation. Because in that moment, as I smiled and excused myself early, I knew this would be the last time they'd have the power to make me feel small. My success wasn't just a job offer anymore. It was becoming my shield, my sword, and my ticket to freedom. Thought. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in fighting back immediately, but in knowing when to step away and let your actions speak louder than words. That bill wasn't just a payment for catering, it was the price of my final lesson in family dynamics, and I was about to show them exactly what they'd lost. I pulled out my credit card with steady hands, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. $4,850, the amount that apparently defined my worth to them.
As I signed the receipt, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, knowing this would be the last time I'd let anyone treat me this way. Driving away from my aunt's mansion, I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of it all. Here I was, a senior software engineer who just landed a dream position at Google, being treated like someone who couldn't possibly amount to anything. The steering wheel absorbed my grip as I remembered their laughter, their assumptions, their complete ignorance of who I truly am. The city lights blurred past my windshield, and I felt tears streaming down my face, not from sadness but from a profound sense of release. They had no idea that while they were busy diminishing me, I was building an empire of my own. $380,000 a year plus stock options. The numbers danced in my head, not because of their magnitude, but because they represented something far more valuable. My freedom. My phone kept buzzing with messages from cousins, probably sharing jokes at my expense. Little did they know that their help was about to embark on a journey they couldn't even imagine. I thought about my workspace at Google waiting for me across the country, and suddenly my aunt's mansion seemed small, insignificant. You know what's fascinating about being underestimated? It gives you the most powerful gift of all, the element of surprise. As I pulled into my driveway that night, I made a promise to myself. This experience wouldn't break me, it would fuel my transformation. Sometimes the people who try to dim your light end up being the ones who push you to shine brighter than ever. I walked into my apartment, kicked off my shoes, and opened my laptop. Time to start planning my cross-country move, my new life, my true legacy.
Because success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right every single day, one achievement at a time. As I settled into my apartment that night after Thanksgiving, something profound hit me. While they were probably still laughing about seating me in the kitchen, I was sitting there looking at my offer letter from Google. $380,000, stock options, senior position. The irony was almost poetic. While they saw me as the help, I was becoming everything they pretended to be. I quote, they spent years building myself up in silence, coding late into the night, taking on challenging projects that others wouldn't touch. Every time my aunt made a snide comment about my computer hobby, I channeled that energy into becoming better. Now, as I look at my reflection in my laptop screen, I see someone who's not just successful, I see someone who's absolutely unstoppable. The validation from Google, one of the world's most prestigious tech companies, means something different to me than just a fancy title or a big paycheck. It's confirmation of what I've always known deep inside, that I am worthy, capable, and destined for greatness. Not because of my family name or connections, but because of my relentless drive and determination. You know what's fascinating? The same qualities they mocked, my independence, my focus on career, my antisocial dedication to learning, are exactly what set me apart in Silicon Valley. While my cousins were networking at country clubs, I was networking with neural networks. While they were inheriting opportunities, I was creating them. But this success isn't about proving them wrong anymore. It's about proving myself right. Every line of code I write, every project I lead, every innovation I create, It's all part of building something bigger than myself. My worth isn't measured by their approval or understanding. It's measured by the impact I make on the world. Dot. Let me tell you something powerful. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to thrive with. And that's okay. Your success story doesn't need their chapter approval. What matters is writing your own narrative, even if it means starting a new book entirely. The most beautiful part, this is just the beginning. As I prepare for my cross country move, I feel nothing but excitement because sometimes the greatest act of self love is choosing your own path, even when others try to guilt you into staying on theirs. Dot. 2 weeks passed like a blur after that Thanksgiving dinner, each day feeling lighter as I settled into the reality of my new position at Google. Then my phone lit up with her name, my aunt. The same woman who had humiliated me in front of everyone, now calling with a voice I'd never heard before, desperate, pleading, broken. I remember standing in my apartment, looking out at the city lights as she stumbled through her words. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, she began, her voice trembling. The irony wasn't lost on me, this coming from someone who had literally relegated me to kitchen duty just weeks ago. But we're family, and I need your help. My heart was pounding as she explained how her perfect son, my cousin, who had laughed the loudest when she handed me that catering bill, had lost his job. They were 3 months behind on their mansion's mortgage. The same mansion where I'd served plates like a hired hand during Thanksgiving. I felt a storm of emotions wash over me. Part of me wanted to hang up immediately, but another part stayed on the line, absorbing every word of her desperate plea. You've always been so responsible, she said, without a hint of self-awareness. So good with money. We could really use your help right now. The weight of that moment was almost overwhelming. Here was the woman who had never seen me as family, now claiming family ties when it benefited her. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed my pride, all the holidays I'd endured their subtle jabs and not so subtle exclusion. But this time was different. This time I wasn't that person anymore. You know what's fascinating about life? How quickly tables can turn. How the same people who once looked down on you might find themselves looking up, searching for the helping hand they never offered you. In that moment, I realized that sometimes the strongest response isn't in lashing out, but in standing firm in your worth. Dot. When that desperate call from my aunt came in, something shifted inside me. Years of being treated as less than, culminating in that humiliating Thanksgiving experience, crystallized into a moment of clarity. I sat at my desk, staring at my phone, her pleading voice still echoing in my ears, and I felt a surge of both power and sadness. This was my chance to make a statement, not just about money, but about dignity and respect. I remember my hands trembling slightly as I opened my laptop and began creating that invoice. $4,850 for catering services rendered. Each keystroke felt like I was writing a declaration of independence. You see, this wasn't about revenge. It was about finally standing up and saying, I am not your servant. I am not less than. I am worthy of respect. The emotional weight of adding that interest charge was intense. Part of me felt guilty, like I was betraying some sacred family code. But then I remembered how they laughed when she handed me that bill at Thanksgiving, how they watched in silence as she degraded me in front of everyone. That silence was as loud as their laughter, and it echoed in my mind as I hit the send button. Dot. You know what the hardest part was? Not the actual sending of the invoice, but acknowledging that I deserved better. For years, I'd internalized their treatment, somehow believing that being successful in my career wasn't enough if I didn't have the right kind of family life they expected. But in that moment, as I crafted that email, I realized that true family doesn't demand servitude as proof of love. This wasn't just about getting even, it was about breaking free from the chains of emotional manipulation that had bound me for so long. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply say no to those who've taken our kindness for granted. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't determined by how much you're willing to endure, but by how firmly you can stand in your truth. We all face moments where we must choose between maintaining peace and maintaining dignity. I chose dignity, and though it felt like jumping off a cliff, I knew my parachute was made of self respect and newfound strength. Sometimes the most profound acts of self love look like rebellion to those who've never respected your boundaries. When my aunt received that invoice, I witnessed something I'll never forget. Her face turned from confusion to shock to pure rage in seconds. I can still hear her shrill voice through the phone. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. The irony of her words hit me like a tidal wave. Everything they'd done for me. Years of subtle humiliation and treating me like a second class family member flashed before my eyes. I felt my heart racing as I calmly explained my new position at Google. The silence on the other end was deafening, only to be broken by her gasping for air. That's when the real storm hit. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications from the family group chat. My cousins, who had laughed while I served them Thanksgiving dinner, were now frantically typing about loyalty and family obligations. It was almost poetic how quickly their tune changed when they realized I wasn't the struggling relative they could look down on anymore. The messages ranged from guilt tripping to outright threats. You're destroying this family, one cousin wrote. Your parents would be ashamed. Another aunt chimed in, but for the first time in my life, their words couldn't touch me. I felt an overwhelming sense of peace as I read each message, knowing I had finally broken free from their toxic expectations. What struck me most was how none of them apologized for their behavior at Thanksgiving. Instead, they focused on my betrayal of not helping family in need. The same family that had seated me in the kitchen treated me like hired help and mocked my personal life. Their definition of family was clear, a one-way street where I was expected to give while they took dot. As I sat there, finger hovering over the block button, I realized something profound. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves. Sometimes walking away isn't abandonment, it's self-preservation. And in that moment, as I blocked every number except my mom's, I wasn't just protecting my peace, I was declaring my worth. You see, family isn't about who shares your blood, it's about who shares your values, respects your boundaries, and celebrates your success instead of trying to diminish it. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is recognizing when to close a door, even if that door leads to people who claim to be family. As the notifications kept flooding my phone, each message felt like a dagger to my heart. My aunt's words spread like wildfire through our family group chat, painting me as the ungrateful niece who dared to stand up against years of subtle degradation. I sat there watching my screen light up with message after message, each one more accusatory than the last. How could you do this to family? We've always been there for you. The irony of their sudden concern for family unity wasn't lost on me that my hands trembled as I went through the painful process of blocking them one by one. With each tap, I felt a mix of guilt and relief washing over me. Years of forced smiles, swallowed pride, and silent tears culminated in this moment of decisive action. But amidst this storm of emotions, one connection remained unbroken. My mother. She called me that evening, her voice carrying the weight of understanding that only a mother could possess. I've watched you endure this for years, she said, her words breaking through my defenses. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. In that moment, I broke down, letting out all the pain I'd been holding back, that my mother's support became my anchor in this sea of chaos. While others saw abandonment, she saw liberation. While they spoke of family obligation, she reminded me of self-respect. Through her, I learned that true family lifts you up, not tears you down. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to create distance from those who refuse to see your worth. The decision to keep only my mother in my life wasn't just about cutting ties, it was about protecting the genuine connection we shared. In her, I found the validation I'd been seeking from others all along. She showed me that family isn't defined by obligation or shared last names, but by respect, understanding, and unconditional support. This journey taught me that sometimes rebuilding yourself requires dismantling the structures that keep you small. Your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it, but by your courage to stand tall in your truth, even when standing alone. Remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's the first step toward creating the life you deserve. Thought, as I pack my belongings into carefully labeled boxes, each item represents more than just a physical move across the country. It symbolizes my liberation from years of emotional baggage. I catch myself pausing, holding a photo from my first coding competition, remembering how I celebrated that victory alone while my cousins got family parties for their smallest achievements. The irony doesn't escape me. My aunt's mansion, which once felt like a monument to my exclusion, now seems small compared to the expansive future ahead of me. My hands tremble slightly as I sign the lease for my new apartment in California. This isn't just about a job at Google or a bigger paycheck, it's about choosing myself for the first time. Every mile between here and there represents a boundary I'm finally strong enough to set. I've spent 25 years trying to earn a place at a table where I was never meant to sit, serving others while starving for acceptance myself. The weight of this decision fills my chest with a complex mixture of emotions. There's an undeniable sadness in leaving behind the familiar, even if that familiar was painful. I find myself grieving not for what was, but for what could have been, the family bonds that never formed, the acceptance I never received. But alongside this grief rises something more powerful: hope. Hope that burns so bright it almost hurts, illuminating a future where I define my worth, where my achievements aren't diminished by others' insecurities. This move represents more than just physical distance, it's a declaration of independence. Every time I doubted myself, every moment I was made to feel less than has transformed into fuel for this journey. I'm not running away, I'm running toward something greater. Toward a life where success isn't measured by others' approval, but by my own standards of authenticity and growth. That sometimes the bravest thing we can do is remove ourselves from spaces that diminish our light. I'm choosing to shine, to build something new, to create a life where future generations might look back and say, she broke the cycle. This isn't abandonment, it's evolution. And as I close the last box, I realize I'm not just packing up my life. I'm unpacking my potential. Legacy was always this heavy word in my family. For them, it meant following their rules, fitting into their mold, and accepting my place as the help. But as I stand here today, I realize that my true legacy will be something entirely different. It'll be the story of how I refuse to let anyone else write my narrative. I remember sitting in that kitchen during Thanksgiving, serving others while swallowing my pride, and I felt this burning inside me, not just anger but determination. In that moment, I decided that my legacy wouldn't be defined by their mockery or their limited vision of who I could become. My legacy would be built on the foundation of every no I said to disrespect, every boundary I drew with confidence, and every step I took toward my own definition of success. The transformative power of this journey has been incredible. Each time they tried to diminish me, I grew stronger. Every attempt to confine me to their expectations only fueled my resolve to break free. Now, as I prepare for my new chapter at Google, I'm not just changing jobs, I'm rewriting the entire story of what's possible when you believe in yourself. But this isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about proving myself right. My legacy will be one of empowerment, of showing others trapped in similar situations that they don't have to accept the roles forced upon them. I want to build a foundation that lifts others up, that creates opportunities for those who've been told they don't belong at the table, that through my experiences, I've learned that true legacy isn't inherited, it's created. It's not about maintaining old patterns of dysfunction, it's about having the courage to forge new paths. Every time I share my story, every time I mentor someone facing similar challenges, I'm building something meaningful that extends far beyond my own journey. The most powerful legacy we can leave isn't in the mansions we build or the dinners we host, it's in the lives we touch and the changes we inspire. As I move forward, I'm committed to transforming my pain into purpose, my struggles into stepping stones for others. Because sometimes the most meaningful legacy starts with having the courage to say enough and the wisdom to build something better in its place. Remember, your legacy isn't what others expect you to leave behind. It's what you choose to build ahead, and that choice, that's your power. That's your truth. That's your legacy in the making. While I reflect on my journey, I realize that my story isn't just about overcoming a traumatic Thanksgiving dinner. It's about discovering my own inner strength and learning to value it above the toxic expectations of others. And I know many of you are going through similar battles, struggling to find your voice amidst the noise of family expectations. Let me share something deeply personal. When I finally made the decision to set clear boundaries with my family, I felt a mix of liberation and overwhelming guilt. It was as if I were tearing up an unwritten contract of family obligations. But you know what I discovered?
That guilt was merely the echo of years of emotional manipulation. The true power doesn't lie in how much money you earn or what position you hold. It lies in the courage to look those who try to diminish you in the eye and say no more. My transition to Google wasn't just a job change, it was a declaration of independence, an affirmation of my self worth. And now I want to speak directly to you who are watching. Your story may be different from mine, but I know you feel that restlessness, that desire to be more than the labels your family has placed on you. It's time to rewrite your script. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as my moment with the catering bill. It can start with small acts of self-affirmation. Build your support circle outside traditional family structures. Seek out people who celebrate your successes instead of trying to diminish them. Set firm boundaries even when your voice shakes. And remember, you aren't abandoning anyone by choosing to protect yourself. You are finally choosing yourself. Your journey of personal growth is sacred, and no one has the right to make you feel smaller for following your path. Take that first step today. Set your boundaries. Honor your truth, and most importantly, allow yourself to flourish, even if it means leaving behind those who cannot accept your evolution. Because in the end, your story of overcoming will not be measured by the ties you maintained, but by the courage you showed in creating your own definition of family, a definition based on mutual respect, genuine support, and unconditional love. As I sit here reflecting on everything that happened, I can't help but feel this strange mix of emotions washing over me. Family relationships are like intricate tapestries, beautiful yet sometimes painfully complex. My story with my aunt and cousins taught me something profound. Love and hurt often dance together in the same space, and that's okay.
It's part of our human experience. I remember those moments in the kitchen, serving others while swallowing my pride. And now I understand that sometimes our deepest wounds become our greatest teachers. The discomfort I felt wasn't just about being treated as the help, it was my soul screaming for recognition, for the respect I'd earned but never received. And in that tension, I found my strength. What I've learned through this journey is that growth doesn't always come wrapped in pretty packages. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a $4,850 catering bill and cruel comments about not having a real family. But here's the beautiful paradox. Those very moments that threatened to break me became the foundation of my rebirth. I discovered that self love isn't selfish, it's necessary. It's the oxygen mask you need to put on first before you can help others. My transformation wasn't just about landing a prestigious job or moving across the country. It was about finally understanding that I deserved to write my own story, to define my worth on my terms. And you know what? The moment I embraced this truth, everything shifted. The pain didn't disappear, but it transformed into purpose thought to everyone out there navigating similar waters. I want you to know something. Your journey matters. Your boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to a healthier you. Don't let anyone dim your light or make you question your worth. Sometimes the family we choose becomes more precious than the one we're born into. And that's perfectly fine. I quote, I'm not just moving forward. I'm creating a legacy of authenticity and self respect. And I invite you to do the same. Your story isn't over, it's evolving. Embrace the discomfort of growth. Celebrate your victories, even the small ones, and remember that every time you choose yourself, you're teaching others how to treat you. This isn't goodbye to family, it's hello to a new chapter where love doesn't require sacrifice, where respect isn't earned through servitude, and where your worth isn't measured by others' expectations. We're all writing our stories, one brave decision at a time. What will your next chapter be?